Eric Bachmann is a prolific and esteemed musician who currently calls Athens, Georgia, home. Originally from North Carolina, Bachmann initially made a name for himself as the lyricist, singer, and guitarist in the band Archers of Loaf, before starting a quieter outlet called Crooked Fingers. Now working under his own name, Bachmann is set to release a wondrous new album called No Recover via Merge Records on September 7th, and he is playing a series of intimate house shows and some club venues throughout the fall of 2018 and into the winter to come. Eric and I recently had an extensive conversation about the inherent fear within parenthood and how he views his own expectations as a new father, his changing singing voice and different modes of expression, his perspective on Archers of Loaf, the current state of America, his new album No Recover, and much, much more. With in-kind support from Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, and of course listeners like you who make flexible monthly pledges at patreon.com/creativecontrol, download episodes, and ask your friends to subscribe to this podcast just like you do. This is the 415th episode of Creative Control, featuring Eric Bachmann with your host, me, Vish.
Me and you, we go inside and wait. Expectations always letting you down. No good movies ever show in this town. All the highways heading out are so clear. Don't know why we hang around every year. No recover.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a sunny, beautiful day here in Guelph, Ontario, where I'm calling you from. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Athens, Georgia.
Athens, Georgia. Is that where you live?
In buggy, humid, soupy Athens, oily Athens, Georgia.
How long have you been in Athens?
I've been in Athens for a while. I've been in Athens for about a decade.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from North Carolina, but I moved a lot. I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina, but I moved to Franklin, Tennessee, and Greenville, South Carolina, and Florida, and back to Tennessee, back to Florida. I lived all over. So the Southeast is what I like to call home.
Okay.
North Carolina is where I was born.
North Carolina is where you... Yeah, it's like, I think a lot of us associate you with North Carolina for some reason, and you know, your old band maybe.
Yeah, because I went to school there, and my father lives in Asheville, and yeah.
Okay. Do you miss it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, North Carolina is a weird, wonderful, natural world speaking is a wonderful place. And then politically, it's a very strange place because you have all these hyper intelligent people sandwiched between all these kind of right wing, people that worry about bathrooms and stuff, people that worry about, right wing people,
Yeah. Is Georgia much better?
Not much. But I guess because I live in Athens and Georgia has Atlanta.
Yeah.
Which is a massive city, and I think Atlanta's sprawl is so vast, and it is such a progressive kind of mindset in Atlanta.
Oh, I see. Okay.
More so than you would say in Raleigh, which is the capital of North Carolina. That's not as progressive as, say, Atlanta,
Yeah. And Athens, I mean, I think a lot of people know Athens because of REM. Is that what is most famous about Athens, maybe?
Yeah, and I think maybe to the kids these days it'd be Nutri-Milk Hotel or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, for sure REM and just the whole music community that was going on in the 70s and 80s there.
Vic Chestnut also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So is there any particular reasons you settled in Athens, if I might ask?
Well, my wife's uncle was Vic Chestnut.
Your wife's uncle was Vic Chestnut?
Yeah, he is or was, yeah. So I moved here because we became an item. We started dating in 2010, 2009, and I moved here right after he passed away.
Oh, man. Huh.
And I think one of the reasons why she responded so well to me, and this wasn't intentional, was because I was the one son of a bitch that didn't want to talk to her about Vic. I was the one person that didn't want to say, I'm so sorry, because I didn't know him. I knew him. I recorded him a couple of times, played a few shows with him, and we were friendly. But I wasn't part of his community here in Athens because I was a North Carolina boy, as you were just saying. So I think when I came in, it was kind of a respite for her to not have to deal with Vic all the time after he passed away, and we hit it off. But I was also sensitive to it because I knew him,
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed Vic a couple of times, and it was a real thrill. And his passing it hit me pretty hard, I have to say. It happened, I believe, over Christmas a few years ago now. And you say you recorded with him.
Well, I recorded. Liz Durrett is my wife. I recorded her last album that she made in 2007, and he had produced the previous 2 or 3 of her records, and he came in on some of those sessions, and he played and sang a little bit. So I recorded, when I was recording her, I recorded, quite literally pressed record when he was singing or playing. So I didn't record with him like my band didn't record with him, or I didn't personally do songs with him, but I was producing a record that he performed on.
So you almost knew him more professionally than personally.
Exactly. I didn't know him personally at all. That's correct.
Okay, interesting. Well, that's fascinating. I had no idea. That's really fascinating. Okay, well, that explains all that. I want to congratulate you on this new album, No Recover, first of all.
Thank you so much.
It's a lovely, lovely record. It's a heavy record, I think, and I wonder if you want to begin by just talking about maybe where you were coming from with this batch of songs. I have my own ideas. I hear lots of thunder. I hear lots of rumbling. I hear some apocalyptic stuff. I hear some stuff about mortality. I can hear the new parenthood in it as well. It's all kind of in there. But can you, now that I've analyzed your record for you in a nutshell.
That's good, though, yeah. Nothing is off. Nothing that you're saying is too far off. So
yeah.
Far off at all, yeah.
That's good. That makes me feel okay. So where was your mindset when you came up with this batch of songs?
So I knew I didn't want to make a record after having a child that was about my child overtly. I didn't want it to be ham-fisted, or I didn't want it to have this thing about, this is an album about my son. It's not really an album about my son, and it's not. But it is, everybody told me when I had a child that I wasn't going to be able to get any work done for the first year or two. And I think there's a lot of truth in that when you're because you're overwhelmed with all the work that it takes to just keep this person from, keep them staying alive and feed them, and
yeah,
there's a lot of work, So as you know, but the interesting thing about all that was that when he was born, I had this flood of ideas. And all this album is that flood of ideas. I had all these song ideas that came out. I had about 14 songs, and I'm very self-loathing, and I'm very self-critical, and I edited it down to 8 or 9 songs, obviously. And basically, in a nutshell, they're about me trying to reconcile all the things I don't like about myself, so I don't pass them on to my son. So in a way, it becomes like a song like Daylight is a song about how I don't want my son to think about killing himself 20 times a day. I'd rather him thinking about it 2 times a day, I'm not unrealistic, you know what I mean? But it's all about eliminating self-loathing so he doesn't have it. And it's all about, and the current political situation in the U.S. is pretty daunting. Whatever side you're on, obviously I'm a more progressive person, but it's just a real bad time,
Yeah.
And you have this child, and you're bringing them into this horrible situation, So all that stuff is in there, but it became a real personal record. It's not really. It's more selfish than that. The record's actually quite a selfish record because it's about me trying to improve myself. I'd be a therapist to myself, so I don't pass all that crap along to my child, to my son.
But in your writing of this record and in your sort of, I guess, analysis of yourself, did you see things going on that maybe had a universal appeal? Like I'm thinking of Murmuration Song. There's I believe it's the final verse. The lyrics are, nobody hates you like you hate yourself. They're all busy doing something else. Nobody tagging you with anything. Unfortunate son descended from unrealistic expectations. Now, I can see where you say you're you have some self-loathing and you reduce the songs from 14 to 9, and I hear that in that lyric. But I also, this nobody tagging you with anything reminded me of social media. This unfortunate son descended from unrealistic expectations. I feel like a lot of us, and I've talked about this with various people on this show, I think a lot of us have really high expectations for ourselves, and they're really hard to fulfill. And this notion of expectation comes up a few times on this record, I believe. There's another song that it's escaping me at the moment, but I feel like you mentioned it again. And that's why I just wonder this notion of sort of external expectation and maybe your own internal. Oh yeah, it's no recovery. You say expectations only getting you down.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So there's this notion of I guess disappointment in yourself and in what life had in store for you, perhaps. Where does that all emanate from? This is a long-winded way of saying, Eric, what's wrong? What?
Yeah, no. I think the particular thread in the record that you're referring to, it's great that you hear them. You know, a lot of people don't even hear them, but is really directed. I'm not even bummed about the fact that I feel like a failure or whatever. I'm not even worried about that. I don't really care at this point. I'm 48. I got property and some money and a wife and a kid. I got a nice dog. You know, I'm not really absorbed. I'm self-loathing, but I'm not absorbed by it. You know what I mean? So that particular thread, it goes against what I just discussed in your previous question. Is that this would be horrible parenting. I know that, but what I want to do is leave my child a lot of money and teach him not to be an asshole and just like live at our lake property and just be a good person and not have to feel like he has to achieve anything, because that expectation is the very thing that fuels your self-loathing, because you always feel like you didn't get there, you know. So
you're communicating to your son by talking to yourself a little bit?
That's exactly right. So at least in terms of that thread, and really a lot of threads, but that's right, because I don't want, I mean, I grew up in a situation, and this isn't my dad or my mom per se, but just the whole culture of your family, and I think we all do, where it's a success-driven culture that we live in. It's a success-driven thing, and I used to always question when they would say, well, that guy, he just works in a restaurant, he's just a waiter.
Yeah.
He's kind of a bum, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's a shitty thing to think, man. What if he makes $28,000 a year, pays $600 a month in a little clean apartment he lives in, and he's happy, and he gets to drink with his buddies, and that's it, and he's fine. And maybe he has a girlfriend, maybe he has a kid, whatever. But why is that an evil thing to be, or not an evil, but a
disparaging?
Disparaging. Why people criticize it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, there's this guy, he's working 40 hours a week, 38 hours a week, and he's serving people food, and he's doing his thing. Why do people criticize this? So I don't want him to feel that from me. He'll feel it enough from the world we live in, you know.
Well, there's a parental impulse to. I feel like it might be more in my parents' generation. You're a little bit older than me, I guess. You got almost a decade on me, but I feel like our parents put a lot of pressure on us generally to be doctors, lawyers. You know, they really wanted. For some reason, sure. I think, again, I know it when I'm talking to my kids, like, I know what I'm saying to them is really a projection of myself, and that's what you're going through now, too.
That's right.
Everything I'm saying is like, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's a thing I do. You shouldn't. Yeah. You should probably learn how to play, like, I've got my 6-year-old son in piano lessons, because I never had them, I think. I think subconsciously. Right. He's totally interested in music, but there's a thing with parents where you want to correct a wrong, and you're the wrong.
Yeah, right.
It's weird. It's a very strange thing, and so that's where all the pressure. You're putting pressure on yourself to not have this little creature be exactly like you, but sort of be like you. It's interesting. Yeah.
Be like the improved version of you. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so you think this is a societal pressure. I guess I was pointing to, like, I was generalizing about parents generally, but I do think that's pressure is calming down, maybe among people of maybe your vintage and my vintage. We're a bit more realistic about these things. Would you agree?
I would, in the sense that my father would have never. I have a good relationship with my father, and he didn't necessarily. He was always pretty supportive. Early on, he was like, "What are you doing?" You know, he wouldn't say it. He didn't say much, but the energy was like, "What the hell are you doing?" You know. And then, first time I was on Jimmy Fallon, or the first time I was on a magazine cover, he recognized Spin, or whatever. I was never on that, but just something he had a point of reference that was emblematic of success to him, you know. He kind of backed off, and I never asked him for a dime, so that was also a big thing. But that's not him, that's just that generation, you know.
Yeah.
They're very money driven. But I do think that, I don't know, I think it's okay to give them guidance. I don't think it's like, I'm not telling my son to be a lazy person. I'm telling him, and I'm not necessarily saying follow your passion, because most people that follow their passion, when they fail, they got to get a job they hate. I guess I just don't want them to feel any sense of failure or success. I want it to be even. Strive for even.
Yeah.
Strive for an even thing. Because I've made comments around his grandparents, my mother and father-in-law, and my own parents, about, well, I hope he ends up being an artist. I'm going to tell him to try and be an artist, because if he starts at like 15 making Joseph Cornell type boxes or something, and he's an artist and he knows how to commodify it, he's not going to ever be anybody's bitch. He's going to be an artist. He's going to make a lot of money, and he's going to be. That's a great life. And I'm going to teach him to go for it. And they just shoot me a look like, you're insane. That's a horrible advice. You know what I mean?
Well, you're saying money driven, like our parents were money driven, but I do think there's an intertwining relationship between the money driven stuff and reality. The stuff that you have chosen to do, like the music and. That's, I think, I'm trying to see my parents. My parents were really down on music. My interest in music was not. They didn't support it, right? Like whether it was playing or writing about it or talking to people, whatever. Like they just are concerned. But I do think that the reality, it's a 1 in a million shot to succeed at some of these things, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They want you to take not only. I don't know if it's just money. I think the subtext is be realistic. Not everyone can fulfill their dream, which is a shitty thing to tell a kid.
Yeah.
So,
but there's truth in it too, though.
There is.
There's a lot of. I mean, I don't want to be the type of parent that tells their kid they're great at everything when they're not. I don't want to miss. I don't want to make, because then they end up being entitled and all this other stuff. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think back to the point of expectation and what you're trying to do with raising a kid, and even with yourself. It's really shaving off the extreme edges of it. Like, you just want to be even. Like, I don't want him to shoot for being Jerry Seinfeld if he wants to be a comic, and I don't want him to be Mick Jagger if he's a rock star. I'd make a living doing what I love to do, and I don't have to deal with any of that crap. I don't have to be a star. I can go get coffee. Nobody bothers me, or if somebody bothers me, it's once a year. It's very, and yet you can go play shows and make a little bit of a living, and a decent living. And like, I guess I want to use that as a pattern for him. Like, you can, you don't have to go for extremes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's realistic. That's the same thing that maybe our parents had. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the same time, you're like, be an artist, but make money at being an artist. Like,
I don't even know. Yeah. I mean, I realize the absurdity of that advice. I do realize it. I do.
No, but it's feasible. It is feasible. And I mean, the economy is so confusing, but there's so many self-made people now. I mean, because
I did it,
Yeah, exactly. You do succeed. You said something earlier about people saying that when you had a kid, you wouldn't be able to do much work. I sense a kind of, I think having children does impact your work. It gives your work greater urgency. It creates, you value your schedule more, I think, is what I found. Like, okay, he's going to be asleep at 7 or 8. Yeah. I'm going to work until midnight or 1 and get that stuff done. And that's my plan, kind of thing.
Right.
But I also think as my parents get older and my children get older, I'm also now confronting the mortality. There's an urgency there too. Like, life feels shakier somehow, even though there's a lot of hope in my kids. The other side of it is, like I say, it's getting to be a time where I have to deal with other stuff. And I sense, like, when I think of songs here like Boom and Shake, Waylaid, there's this sense that you're grappling with mortality, and I wonder if that's tied to becoming a new parent.
So when people tell you you don't understand love until you have a child, I don't agree with that. I think I love my wife as much as I love my child. I don't think it's fair to say you don't, to somebody that doesn't have kids, if you're listening to this, I think you do understand what love is. You don't have to have a kid to understand that. What you don't understand if you don't have a kid, and this is what those songs are, this is what's bringing out the apocalyptic edge to what I'm saying, or in the music, is a fear of your child dying before you, or getting hurt in a way that's damaging to their life as a whole. that fear, and maybe it's semantics, but it's not the feel good love stuff. It's the fear of them being hurt.
Yeah.
Of something like that. The vastness of that fear, you can't understand it until you have a little dude. Maybe a little bit if you have a dog. Like, I love my dog, whatever, but that's what changes. And that creeps out in me. It creeps out, and it creeps out in this record. It creeps out in a very, especially with the political climate here in the U.S., and just the way we don't give a shit about each other with our healthcare and stuff. We just don't care about each other,
Gun control, all of it, yeah.
All of it, we don't care.
Yep.
And so that stuff is really is exaggerated. It's hyperbolized in your mind when you live in America, and you have a kid all of a sudden, and that, I don't know what I would do. I guess it'd be an easy thing for me to do if my son passed away. I would just take my own life. That's what I would do, because I couldn't handle it.
You've already determined that that's the case. I
think so. Or go into the woods and just disappear, and probably starve. Whatever. I don't know what I would do, but it would be so. I mean, the idea, and maybe you toughen up if it happens to you, you toughen up. People are very resilient. Our species is pretty resilient. But
Eric, how old is your son?
He's 16 months old.
Right. So this is all new. There's a rawness to this record. Like, I know your work rather well, and I know that you're because you're self-critical. I know that you refine, and I can see the work in your lyrics. Is I guess what I'm saying. I feel like you work on them, and you get them down to what you want to put across. But I also get the impression, I don't know when these songs were written necessarily. Were they all written after the birth of your son? Yeah. So there's a sense to me that it is very raw. It's a very visceral. It's a reflection of a very visceral reaction to a life-changing event.
That's correct.
And so within that, and I'm not trying to criticize this in any way, I sense a certain amount of drama in it as well, because it's just like, holy Lord, like, this is the most overwhelming thing that's ever happened to me. And that it's coming through even when you sing in a measured tone. It's just coming through. And now you say, if something happened to my son, that would be it for me. I'm going to suggest to you that you will settle down at some point. I've had the same thoughts. I have them more now. Once your kids are more like, no, they're not crawling anymore. They're walking. My kid just I went to the Costco with my kid yesterday, and he had to go to the bathroom. And for the first time, we were at the checkout. I was like, yeah, just go. I would normally be like, I'll go with you. And I watched him with my daughter in the cart, At some point you do let go a little, I guess, is what I'm trying to impart to you. And I'm sure you're aware of this.
I certainly am aware that that's what's supposed to happen. I'm sure that we'll do that. But, I'm going to defend it in the sense that I'm a writer. I'm writing a story, so I have to make it work, So the drama part, that's fine. I want it to be compelling and almost you can put it to a stage as well. I write like that as well, where I see it, but I want to be able to see it.
There's stuff here that, I think people, like in Boom and Shake, you say stray dogs cover the mountaintop, howling, hosting mosquitoes, landslides crash into wildfires, stealing daughters and sons. So you've got this imagery of this wild, and again, this is I would say Boom and Shake. It's about basically the earth destroying itself, I would say, or coming alive and getting revenge, even perhaps.
My mother lived in Penajachel on Lake Atitlan in Guatemala for about a decade and a half. She lived there before the 1990, I guess the Civil War ended in 92 or 94, somewhere in there. And I apologize to anybody from Guatemala that knows the exact date, but it was in the 90s that it ended.
Yeah.
And she lived there before the 90s, and she lived there afterwards. And Lake Atitlan, if you know the geological history of it, that song is very much stealing image from that region.
Oh, I see.
So, and there's 3 volcanoes that are there, and the lake is a big caldera. And I think it was 80,000 years ago, they estimate, was when that went off. And that's, and of course, there's landslides there all the time, and there's wildfires there all the time, and they, thousands upon thousands of people die in landslides all the time, and it's the Mayans. There's a Quiche, Cocchiquel, and Zutuil Mayans living all around that lake. It's a beautiful weaving fabrics and things. It's just a beautiful place, And so all that imagery is basically waiting for that to happen again. What happened 80,000 years ago,
So you're thinking about your son, you're thinking about the future, what his life is going to be like, but you're also thinking about your mother. There's a song here, the song that I believe is dedicated to your son, Dead and Gone. It's the final song.
Yeah, that's correct.
Final song on the record. When I was a young boy, mother sat me down and basically, I'm not going to give too much away here, but basically imparts wisdom to you. You're doing it. I think you're doing what I posited. This notion of like you have a kid, but then you start thinking about your parents and what they did and how they treated you, and you're trying to refine all of that as you go forward, right? That's happening.
Yeah, but I don't think my parents did that horrible of a job, though. I don't think that it's like I think they did pretty well considering all the people that are around me and who are all I landed pretty well.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting it was a criticism of them.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I just mean you as a parent, you begin reflecting upon your own parents. When you become a parent, you just sort of think about how, because they're your guideposts, they're your foundation. Like no one knows. People like I have friends who are just having kids. They're like, what do I do when this happens? And I'm like, well, you just do it. You kind of just, I know there's no guidebook really. You just react.
Yeah.
There's things, of course, that I shouldn't say that. There's certain certain things you should get. Make sure the kid eats and sleeps. And
no machetes. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, there's that stuff too. So it is. I hear it all on this record, and there's a really stunning vocal here on the second song, Daylight, and it makes me want to ask you about your voice. I'm sure you fielded these questions over the years since Crooked Fingers began as well. There is a marked difference between the voice we came to know you from in Archers of Loaf and the iteration of you going solo, whether it's Crooked Fingers or now as yourself. Can you talk about your voice a little bit, just in terms of because you also, you and I met in Calgary.
I remember, I recognize your voice from that, interestingly enough.
Oh, do you? Yeah, we walked around together a little bit, and then we sat on a couch in a hotel.
In the hotel, I remember that.
Yeah,
yep.
So I'm a huge fan of yours, and you had to go. That was Archers of Loaf had been disbanded for quite some time. You'd been doing Crooked Fingers. In fact, you played a Crooked Fingers set as part of Sled Island in this little club. So you had to. Your voice was just in this oscillation in that period, and I wonder if you can talk about that. Like,
well, yeah, it's easy to me to talk about because it's all very scientific. I mean, the Archers were loud. Were loud guitars, and I was screaming over that stuff just to fight and give it a sense of urgency. And it was more of a influenced by punk bands and television and Mission of Burma and things like that. And so it was in that world, and I was 19 or 20 when that band started, and I sang like that. And we went on tour, and we toured a lot. And I really, I smoked a lot, I drank a lot, I did drugs a lot back then, and I really dried out my throat, and I really damaged my throat, and I damaged my hearing, my left ear especially, about above 3,000 hertz. I can't hear.
Oh, okay.
But the good news is that I've worn earplugs for about a decade now, and it's not gotten any worse. Oh, good. So that's good. But essentially, when I went to my ENT doctor in Durham, this was in 1999, right after Crooked Fingers, or right after Archers stopped and Crooked Fingers started in 98. At that transition, the doctor's like, "You're going to lose your voice at like 50 if you don't. If you can't do this, you can't sing 200 days a year, drink a half a fifth of Jack Daniels and 6 beers and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes and do 6 lines of blow. You can't do that,
Yeah.
And sing like that."
Wait a minute. So, were you doing all of those things?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Huh.
Absolutely. So, and I stopped smoking when I was 37, and I've been, everything else sort of gradually dropped to a low thing there. Obviously, I don't do drugs anymore, but the alcohol, I drink very little now.
So was the ENT telling you to just stop that behavior or stop singing?
No, the singing. It was about it was about all of it. The ENT was about all of it. But essentially, I just started singing differently. I stopped screaming, and I also started writing quieter music that I didn't have to scream over. Because just to be straightforward, I was sick of screaming. I was sick of playing loud music, and I knew I could sing. But I had been in a band where the aesthetic was, it's kind of lame to sing. Why don't you just scream and be cool like Joe Strummer? And that's what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I could also hold pitch and sing if I could if I could write music that was appropriate to do that. So it was kind of this sort of subconscious, sort of intentional direction change, aesthetic direction change, where I could become more of a singer-songwriter. I mean, I guess I knew I wanted to do this until I was dead.
Yeah.
Just being a musician and be a songwriter. and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to sing audio horror at age 70.
Right.
So I started writing songs that I could play with a guitar by myself and sing until I was dead. And that way I could make a living, doing it until I was dead. Because I knew I was never going to be a rock star. I knew I didn't have the charisma for that. I couldn't put my ass on an album cover with an American flag behind it. I couldn't do that,
Right.
And I just didn't have that talent, but I felt like I could write, and I felt like I could play, and I felt like I could sing well enough to do it, and so every morsel of my being was sort of changing in a way, just aesthetically, so I could do it forever. And also, the doctor's like, "Man, you can't keep singing like that."
Right. Okay.
And treating your body like that. So it all was kind of slowly morphing. And when I listened to the first two Crooked Fingers records, it's really fascinating to me because I couldn't get a note out unless I sang really loud. I couldn't sing quietly because my voice was so shredded. And I don't actually cringe when I hear them because they're charming, but I had to sing a song like Man Who Died, or I had to sing those that way because I couldn't get any air out of it. And I remember singing this song Broken Man, which was more like what Daylight is like. That was a real kind of high, lighter one. And it took me like 3 days to get the vocals because my voice was so shredded. I had to do different takes. I did the first verse today. I finally could get that to a point. And over time it healed, and now it's healed because I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I've been singing properly, or whatever that means. I don't know if it's proper, but I've been singing differently.
Yeah.
And so now it's just kind of honed in. And working with people like Nico Case, like she's a great singer.
Yes.
And she wasn't a great singer at the beginning. I think she's been a great singer the whole time, but to hear her talk about it and how she's worked on it is kind of an inspiration. And working with her, and so a lot of it's real gradual, but a lot of it's subconscious, a lot of it's intentional, and a lot of it's just science, just the medical. I had to stop doing it that way,
So did you have? I can think of few people who have sort of multiple modes. Sorry, that's not true. There's lots of people maybe that do, but you, I think, are among. I would place it right up there with like Dylan releasing Nashville Skyline. Just all of a sudden, a guy with a totally different, like, oh, it's Eric from Archers of Loaf. Let's put this on. Oh, wait a minute. Like, he's kind of crooning now.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Like, have you had that reception? Were people kind of jarred by it when it first?
Yeah, absolutely. Archers fans don't want to hear it, and then people that came later and want to hear me now, they don't want to hear the Archers stuff. It's
yeah.
I don't care. I'm just trying to make a living doing what I love to do. So, you don't like it, I'm sorry, man. If you do, thank you. Whatever. It doesn't bother me. But it's not anything I think of in a public way. Like, I really don't care if somebody doesn't like it. I had one guy in Maine that was just furious that I had changed the sound of my voice. He was so mad that I didn't scream anymore and didn't have that rasp.
Right. Yeah. No,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, cool, man. Thanks for the $25. You just paid to see it. Don't come again. Whatever.
I attended the initially the last Archers of Loaf tour. There was a show in London, Ontario, at a venue called the Embassy.
Oh, I love that place. Yeah.
It's gone now, unfortunately.
I know. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah.
So I attended that show. Like, is your voice one of the reasons that band stopped? Like, your issues? I
think we would have kept going. And it would have sounded more like what I ended up sounded like anyway.
Yeah.
I think the band broke up because we were burnt.
Yeah.
I think the band, like many bands, was kind of pushed in a way that we weren't ready to do. They really want to work young bands very hard on the road. And I'm not sure how beneficial that is. It is for some bands, but, so we just burnt out. And then our drummer had some health issues with his carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
And we were touring our butts off, working our butts off, and nothing was growing financially. Nothing was getting bigger. In fact, it was shrinking.
Right.
So, we made $7,000 for a 7-week tour. And we did that in 1993, and we did it in 1998. And it's like, well, it's not growing. And I think everybody was burnt and bored, and just, I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I was kind of sick of being in a guitar rock band.
Yeah. So so the reissues for the band, the records started coming out in 2010, 2011 or something like that?
Yeah, 2011, yeah.
Yeah, and then you did this, was it a reunion tour in 2012? Yeah, you did.
We did a couple of years. We did 2011 and 12. I think we did some touring, about 25 shows each year.
And so did that experience give you a new perspective on that band?
Yeah, it was fun, man. I love those people, and I actually like that music. After taking a break from it for 13 years. I mean, you can't ever go back in the sense that I can't be 22 again. But I actually, one of the things that was most appealing about it is because I had changed the way I sang.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about, actually, among other
I
things.
mean, physically, I had changed the way it came out of my stomach instead of my throat, and just all that stuff had become kind of more sustainable. The way I sang, it was actually really rewarding because back in the day, I would sing 2 shows on tour and I'd be shot for the rest of the tour.
Yeah.
With this, because I sang with more air and sang with more support in my stomach and my diaphragm, I didn't really lose my voice, which was great. Which makes me want to do more of it if we can figure out a way to do it. And by that I mean write more music, because I don't want to just do it with our old music. I'd like to make new music if we were to do it. But I don't know. You know, I really enjoyed it. I would like to do more of it.
Is there a sense from the others that that's something they'd be? Yeah.
Everybody wants to do it. I have to write the songs, and I haven't been able to write. I mean, I'm not going to give the Archers Dead and Gone. I'm not going to give the Archers No Recover. You know, I'm not going to give them the mellow stuff that nobody wants to hear.
Mm.
But I do have other songs that would be more of a rock band, like guitar, bass, drums kind of setup. I just haven't finished them, and I haven't. But Eric Johnson, the guitar player for the Archers, is the guitar player. All the electric guitar, all of it, all of the electric guitar on the new record on No Recover is Eric Johnson from the Archers.
That's right. And is that, I mean, for those of us who can't you're a prolific guy, is that a new development in terms of you guys collaborating?
Yeah, I mean, we've never done anything outside of the Archers, and I always kind of thought of it like, well, let's just never work with those guys because that'll keep the Archers a thing, you know. And I still kind of feel that way, although Matt's played bass with me on some stuff. But
yeah,
I just like Eric's guitar playing. I mean, I'm just a fan of what he does. I was a fan when he was in the band with me, and I'm a fan now. He makes his own little records now that are great, and nobody knows about them because he doesn't care about putting them out. But I mean, I just like his playing. It's abstract. It's not cliched. It's just a weird thing that he does. It's also, when you don't expect it, it's very melodic and, you know, very accessible, but also very weird. He's just a weird guy, you know, and I love the way he thinks about stuff. So I don't know. I would love to work with him again. And we talked about it when we recorded these songs. We talked about doing more Archer stuff, and he's like, "Well, you just let me know, man." So he's just waiting for me.
Well, you say like you couldn't give him daylight. You couldn't give him some of these songs, right? Like, and Archers had a very particular point of view. I would say it was of its time, probably of your time, being a younger guy, kind of angry, a little cynical, abstract, artful. Like, you're going to have to basically, beyond your singing being different, it sounds to me like you're going to have to switch modes as a writer, potentially, right?
Well, not necessarily, and this is a giveaway. I apologize to Archers fans that want it to be more authentic. You know, in a way, you're it's like David Bowie. You're kind of acting. You know, with the Archers, I was a smartass. It was easy to put on.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a put on, man. I'm sorry. You know, it's kind of I'm just being a smart ass punk kid, you know.
Yeah.
And
but you were kind of at the time.
Oh, definitely. No, I mean, it's a part of a personality that, you know, it's your personality, but it's just an aspect of it that I would never write a song with that character that I can do. That's part of me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I would never write a song about how I don't want my son to kill himself, you know, like think about it like I do, you know what I mean? I would never. It's just too sensitive. It's too personal. The Archers is more of a
detached.
Yeah, it's more detached. It's more socially analytical and less personal. It's more making fun of Walmart and more critical. It's more punk that way, you know, more social commentary than what I write now. When I write solo or when I wrote for Crooked Fingers, it was more personal, you know.
Yeah. So when you say you have to write the songs, have you even attempted to write in that mode?
Yeah, I have. It's not easy. Nothing's easy, but it's happening. It's just slow because I have a kid. It's slow, so it's hard to get the work done, like my friend said. You know, so but like you noticed the sort of explosion of ideas that I had after my son was born, that became this record, and that happened quite easy. And then all the other stuff that I was working on, I'm trying to do with Archer stuff. We're trying to make new record. I mean, it's all coming out sideways and coming out, you know, it all comes out together kind of. So you have to sort of sift through it and organize it in your mind. So that has to happen, but it's not an impossible thing for me to sit down and write an Archers song that would work for the Archers. But I've got a few ideas that are working, you know.
Right. So you are, it's on your priority list, but it's not imminent necessarily.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can't force these things. I'm not the type. I am the type of person that wants to sit down from 9 to 5 and write and get something done. And I do believe in that ethic, but it does have to come to you. It does have to hit you, and it's just not hit me in the form of, okay, now we've got 16 new songs or whatever.
Right.
That hasn't happened yet. It's a gradual oozing of ideas that eventually form, and that's not happened yet.
Well, but perhaps, you were talking about the times we live in and bringing a kid into this world. Maybe this is the right time for Archers, like the right.
Yeah, I know. It is, except for I don't want to honor. Like, I would never write a song about Donald Trump because he doesn't deserve my time.
Yes,
of
course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, he's not. I know that a lot of people disagree with me. He's not a genocidal dictator. He's not. I don't want to. He's problematic, and he's not intelligent as somebody that I would like to be the leader of the country that I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously vested in interests that aren't in line with what my interests are. He's definitely a money-driven guy for his friends.
Yeah.
And I'm being very friendly right now, of course, but I don't want.
Yeah, you're not taking. You don't think he deserves to be taken that seriously.
I'd rather write about stuff that matters more. Like, yeah. I don't think he. I mean, I know that he could matter if he does all this immigration stuff. If he keeps putting kids in detaining, all the stuff that he does that's been criticized,
mm-hmm.
in a justifiable way. I don't. I know that I don't want to ignore it either, because you don't want to have him become this horrible demagogue that becomes a horrible part of history or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's not done that yet. To the degree that it's been done by people like Joe Stalin and stuff or whatever, but so I don't want to ignore it, but I don't feel like, I just don't want to honor it. I don't want to. He doesn't deserve it. I don't want to give it to him. You know what I mean?
I do. I've talked to I talked to many Americans actually through my work, and one of the common threads I've heard in terms of trying to find hope in all of this, and also efficacy in terms of change, is on a local and a community level, like kind of engaging and writing about and bolstering your local situation so that it's a building block for other communities. So it sounds to me, and knowing you I think of you as like a community-minded person, I could see you delving into those interpersonal dynamics for songwriting fodder for Archers, perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. It's also so bad. You can write about it in such a way that even if you're just abstract, you can still be singing about it without giving it away too much, because there's so much.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah. Well, I know you were saying that the Archers experience in 2011, 2012 was fun. What do you make of this clamoring for, bands of your vintage, of your time period? It's still going on, and people are getting back together. And in my experience, the bands that I've seen that I used to watch in the 90s or early 2000s that sort of return, I will say this about your Sled Island show, the Archers Sled Island show, it felt better. Like, it felt like the band, often the band seems better as they're older. I guess it's two questions. Like, the clamoring is one thing from younger people to see a thing they didn't get to see, I think, and older people who are like, I want to relive that time. Yeah. But there's also this sense, I think, that the musicianship is better. There's more urgency to the, all the petty grievances in a band that can occur are kind of, they dissipate because people are like, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just have fun. There's not a lot of time on this earth. Is all of that mingling there for you? Yeah,
absolutely. And I do think you're just grateful that people gave a damn at all. And if they're going to keep caring, then you just want to say thanks. And, it's a great, not to be too PC or whatever, but we're very lucky. If you're an American kid, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, but you're playing in a band and you're making money and you're complaining. You know what I mean? I mean, considering what the world is, I mean, you just can't. You weren't born in Cambodia in 1972 under Pol Pot. You know what I mean? Like, it's very It's very for me. It's very important to put that in the front of your brain and be grateful that you were able to whine about how bullshit the music industry was in America. You know what I mean? People love that Archer stuff. They love the fact that they love all the anti A&R stuff that the Archers wrote about. But what a white privilege first world problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big. It's just, I don't know. I don't regret singing that stuff because it's the world I was in and it's what it is. But it's,
Yeah.
It's just, I'm grateful. That's all.
Well, and you've also done a lot, I think, to push against those conventions. I mean, even the last, you and I are Facebook friends, and I think maybe I like one of your pages because I think it was last year, I just got all these announcements saying you were playing in people's living rooms.
It's good to do that. Yeah, I'm doing those. I love doing those.
Yeah, so that is kind of bucking the system. That is kind of like, can you talk about that? Like, why? There's also, I will say, I think some artists are like, finally, I'm at the venue, I can relax I have a bit of downtime. The living room situation is very different, I would think. You've got to figure out if you're friendly with these people. You got to maybe deal with a bit more, because it's unconventional. There's a bit more weirdness, I would say, inherently. What's your experience been like with those shows?
Well, it's been great for me. And I know friends who've done them, and they have had a little bit of a weird thing here or there. I haven't had that yet. And I don't know if it's just because I'm older and my fans are older and they're not enamored. Also, I'm not coming from a place where I was ever really a rock star. You know what I mean? The Archers were never that big, and Crooked Fingers was smaller than that, and where I am now is even smaller than that. So I don't know. I feel like the reason it's appealing for somebody like me is because you're mentioning that it seems like you get to the club and you relax, but for me, it's this living room thing is the least psychic drain.
Oh, okay.
It's the easiest thing to do because I usually travel with my dog.
Oh.
And I'm by myself in a van, and I usually stay in the van. I'll get a campsite or something. I'll get hotels occasionally, and I'll stay at a friend's house or whatever. But I show up around 7 at night. I don't have to do a sound check. I don't have to. All my load-ins like a guitar and a banjo and my merch, a little bit of merch, very easy.
Mm-hmm. And
then I play for an hour and a half. At 8, I'm done at 9:30, and then I talk to people for about an hour, and then I leave. So there's no like dealing with a promoter at the end of the night to get paid, and no like it's not too drunk, and people are spitting in my ear drunk about 1993 or some shit I don't care about anymore. All that stuff is kind of eliminated by this, and I think because you're so close, and I don't know why, but for me, people seem very respectful. I think they'll say things that are real friendly, and it's a little awkward because they're too friendly sometimes.
Right.
Now I just feel weird. Don't be so nice right now. Just say thanks and leave. So that's a good problem. Like, and if a worst case scenario, I just say, cool, man, I gotta go. I'm sorry, I gotta go. And I don't know. I just haven't had that experience yet where there's somebody who's been too weird.
But do you ever get to a place and you're like, this living room is kind of tiny. What are we doing here?
I haven't had that. I mean, I'm going through Undertow, and Bob and Jane at Undertow, and they've done it so long. They've done it since 2008. They started off with Dave Bazan doing them, I think, and they just kind of have it down. They have it organized with
okay. There's an itinerary. Like, I see. Someone is sort of planning this for you. It's not just you.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm quite introverted, so. I never did this. Like, I have friends that have been doing these. Richard Buckner, David Bazan, Will Johnson. These are all friends of mine, and they've been doing them for years. And they were like, "Hey, man, you should think about doing living room shows. They're pretty good." I'm like, "I don't think so, man. I couldn't do it because of what you were saying. I thought that I'm too introverted. I can't deal with people like this. I can't do it, And I was talking with my friend Josh Modell, who used to work at the AV Club, and he told me about Bob Andrews, the guy that runs Undertow, and I was thinking about getting out of Nico's band because my wife was pregnant, and I was figuring out a way to do this without having to get a big band together and tour like crazy, and that's expensive, and you can do it, but and anyway, long story short, let me do a week.
Yeah.
And I contacted Bob, and I did a week, and I loved it, and then I did 2 weeks, and then I loved that, and then I just kind of fell into him, because it's very. I'm introverted, so I'm driving in a van. I'm in my van with my dog for 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then 4 hours I got to be nice to people.
That seems pretty good. That's not that bad.
And play an hour and a half of that. So really, it's only 2.5 hours. I got to be nice to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Is there a way we can get you to Guelph? We got to figure this out.
I'm playing in I'm playing in London. I got a living room show in London,
Yeah,
Ontario,
that's fair. That's not that. That's an hour and 15 minutes away. Yeah, that's okay. I can do it.
and
Done it
I've got
before.
I've got a show at the Drake in Toronto,
Oh, sweet. Okay, not a living
and
room.
then we're playing in Hamilton. No, that's not a living room. We're playing in Hamilton at the Casbah on October 8th.
Okay, that seems like enough. Are you saying Vish, settle down? There's many
Well,
options
no,
for you.
I drive past Guelph all the time, and from an outsider, you just like Hamilton, Guelph, all those places, Waterloo. It's all just Toronto. It's all just you know what I mean. It's all just, Toronto's such a sprawl.
Well, we should figure this out. I work at the college radio station. We gotta. This is not for this interview, but we should. Let's figure this out, Eric. We'll get you in there to do something. We should. If you're passing by and you see it, it's a lovely little university college town. I think you might enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, if you think I would sell okay doing a living room show there, I just need to do. We got to find somebody that would host a living room, and I would do it. You know.
Yeah. All right. I will. This has prompted me to think about it, but we'll save the business for off mic. I will just say that this record is fantastic. It's called No Recover, and you are going to be touring, as you say, quite a bit. Where can people learn more about this record, Eric?
So you can go to the Eric Bachmann Facebook page. You can go to merge.com and just look up Eric Bachmann. There's all kinds of stuff, my Twitter page, whatever. It's all kind of connected. I hit, I put it on Facebook. It goes all over the place on my Instagram, whatever. It's all just Eric Bachmann,
Okay. You're on Twitter? So, are you actively on Twitter?
I announce stuff on Twitter. I'm not giving my opinions too much on Twitter. I'm mostly just announcing my tours and ticket sales and things like that. But I love the format, and I do read a lot of people that I like, their opinions about other political things and other things. But yeah, so I basically am going on tour. I'll just say it here. I'm going on tour basically east of the Mississippi from September 27th through October 14th.
Okay.
And we're going to we have 3 shows in Canada. We have one in Hamilton, one in Toronto. That's the Drake in Toronto and the Casbah in Hamilton. And we're playing a living room show in London, Ontario.
Okay. All right. And we'll work on it.
And all that stuff's on my website, ericbachmann.com, or my Facebook page, which is just Eric Bachmann.
Okay.
It's,
Okay, that sounds good. We'll work on getting you a Guelph date somehow as well, or something. We'll do something.
Yeah, what I do, I go out for about a week and I come back, so that's I can go, because I have a son, so I don't leave town for too long because I want to have a relationship when I'm older. So
yeah, it's a good call. Yeah. Is there a particular song from No Recover that you would suggest we play for people right now?
I'd play the first one because it's the easiest to get to, and it's something I think it encapsulates what the record's going on. It's about the apocalypse and 2 people that are trying to stay in love during the apocalypse.
Does this reflect your personal romantic relationship in any way?
No, they're immigrants.
Okay.
They're immigrants. I've envisioned them as immigrants on a train. The song starts with this train sound, and
yeah,
it's very abstract. I'm just telling you what it was in my mind. You won't hear this story necessarily in the song, but it's what it was kind of spawned from in my mind.
Well, there's wonderful musical production on this record as well. A lot of understated electronic kind of stuff. It's really well done.
Thanks. Well, it's less stuff than ever. There's very little stuff on it. Each track's about 6 things.
Yeah.
These days with Pro Tools, people have like 70 things on their sessions. I got like 6. I got an acoustic guitar, a Moog, and a little rhythm thing, and then maybe some bass. That's it. The vocal, very stripped down.
Well, it's stripped down, but it's effective.
But it's full.
It has a fullness for sure. Yeah. This is Jaded Lover, Shady Drifter from No Recover by Eric Bachmann. Eric, thank you so much for this time today, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Into an empty space.
It's always very pleasing to me when I have a genuine hero on my show. Special thanks again to Eric Bachmann for appearing on this, the 415th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available on all iOS and Android platforms, and also on things like Spotify and YouTube and Audio Boom as well. If for some reason you can't find an episode that you've heard about or have been looking for on any of those platforms, or if you want to learn more about me, sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com, vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Vish Creative with a K, or follow me at Vishkhanna, also with a K. You can listen to a radio show version of Creative Control on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time, around the world at CFRU.ca, or if you're in or near Guelph on an actual radio at 93.3 FM. Also, please consider visiting patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. It really it means so much. It's a tremendous thing to have you pledging to our Patreon. And we don't have a ton of Patreon pledges, but they all count, and we could always benefit from some more. So if you enjoy the show and want to contribute a little something each month just to keep it going, that would be amazing. Patreon.com/Creative Control. I'd like to take a moment to once again thank the in-kind support I receive from businesses like Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Grandad's Donuts. Also, my friend Jim Guthrie lets me use the instrumental version of The Rest Is Yet to Come to end the show each week, and you can learn more about Jim, and I urge you to do so at his website, jimguthrie.org. Follow him on Twitter at Jampants. That's a name that he's sticking with, Jampants. That's right. And finally, thanks to you for listening to this show regularly, if you do, and if you're new to it, hey, welcome to the show. This is 415. Obviously, there's 414 before it, so feel free to dig in. It's a nice thing I tried to do. I spent a lot of time on it, and if you're new to the show, again, I appreciate you checking this episode out, and I hope you'll check out more. And also, for those of you who have heard this spiel before, please, for those of you who haven't, I guess is really who I was sending this out to, please consider rating it, reviewing it, and downloading episodes whatever platform you use. Subscribe to the show, and that all helps as well in a little way. It seems to spread the word about it. So thanks to all of you for doing all of that stuff. I will continue to do all the stuff I do. I will talk to you very soon. Goodbye for now.